Welcome back. The conversation on oil continues now with Okpeyemi Oguntade, who is a senior investment officer with Financial Derivatives Company. Good morning to you, Okpeyemi. Thank you so much for coming on the program. So the conversation, as I said, is all about oil. Today, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries are meeting in Vienna, Austria. What's in this meeting for Nigeria?
Well, for Nigeria, I mean, there's a position opening for the Secretary General of OPEC. So I guess for Nigeria, Nigeria and Venezuela are one of the, the contending candidates for that position. So I mean, that's good news for Nigeria. But at the same time, looking at Nigeria's production so far, I wouldn't say Nigeria is it's really benefiting from this recovery or rally we've seen in oil prices. So at the end of the day, most analysts are expecting that OPEC would maintain status quo because there's been a de facto oil freeze, if you want to call it that, because it appears nature has helped to reduce the supply glut we've seen in the market coming from Canada, coming from Nigeria, Venezuela, and Libya. So OPEC meeting is most likely going to maintain status quo in terms of production. But if we're looking at Iraq and Iran, they've been ramping up production. Iran is currently about 3.7 million barrels, and they have promised us that they're not going to relent until they get back to pre-sanction levels, which is about 4 million barrels. Iraq has said, we're going to expand production to about 5 million barrels in June. And we know that Saudi Arabia is, it's listing its oil company in the stock exchange, Saudi Aramco. And that means that, they are going to be more of profit maximizers, and obviously for shareholders, they would want to make sure that you produce up to capacity, maximize capacity so you can make more profit. So I mean, it looks like we might see Saudi Arabia expanding production, but there's really no guarantee that that's going to happen. But so far so good. What we expect is for them to maintain status quo. On the bright side, we know that Gabon is coming in. Gabon is going to it's going to join OPEC again. They left in 1993 or 1994. And the reason why they left was because they wanted them to reduce the annual subscription fee. They felt like they were paying too much.
Now they can pay for it. So.
They were paying too much for a small country, and OPEC members are like, okay, so if we're going to reduce the subscription fee, then we might as well reduce your voting rights as well, because and then there was a hustle of
okay. So if Dr. Bakindo actually gets nominated as the Secretary General for OPEC, can he, for instance, begin to push for that freeze production? Do you think that he can make a case for it?
Well, like I said earlier, freezing production at this point, I mean, back in April, it was a concern. Everybody was all about freezing production. But if we're looking at what has happened so far, the case for freezing production isn't so strong anymore because we've seen a de facto oil freeze from the supply disruptions we've seen across the world. So, yes, he could make a good case for it should the need arise sometime down the line in the second half of 2016. But for now, I doubt that would be his,
Okay, so what position do you think oil prices will take today? How do you think investors will trade? Are we going to see oil prices plummet because of the no change in policy by OPEC? Or do you think they'll go right ahead and continue to trade anyway?
I think right now, most investors have already factored that into oil prices, the fact that they expect them to maintain status quo, because there's no reason for them to freeze and there's no reason for them to increase as well. But the only thing we could say would drive oil prices today is the fact that we're expecting a report from the International Energy Agency in terms of U.S. crude production or crude stockpiles. And most analysts have projected that there's going to be a 3.1 million barrels reduction. So if this is in fact true, then we'll see oil prices rally again, maybe above 50. If it does, I mean, that's excellent news for oil producers.
Okpeyemi, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Business Morning continues in just a moment. We've got another issue that we're focusing on in just a bit. Join us again.